applause to our third group, Spencer, Judith, and Robert.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna start our speech and we're gonna do a game along with our speech, okay? We're gonna ask a couple of questions, total of about 5-6 questions, and we're gonna divide the class into 2 groups. So we'll do from here, this side will be group A, and from here to this side will be team B.
Participation is necessary, so please participate. If you don't know the answer, just try to guess.
Yeah, we
And
want.
you're answering for your team.
You will get points. So in the end, we're not gonna say who, either the winner or the loser. It's gonna get a little treat. So.
Okay? Now Spencer will start with the group.
Does anybody know who this is? We need a guess when someone says.
One of the presidents, Reagan.
Correct.
She answered first. Team
Ronald
B
Reagan.
gets a point.
Team B gets a
Or who was team A? Okay, give him a point.
Ronald Reagan was born February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois. He became president in 1980, and he was 69 years old when he became president. And he served 2 terms in office as president.
Can anybody tell me what president Ronald Reagan was? By show of hands, anybody? Take a guess.
The 43rd.
43rd? Wrong. You guys want to try to answer it?
39th.
38.
I need this. 38? 38 is closer. He was actually the 40th president. It's another point for Team A. Ronald Reagan was the 40th president. And growing up as a child in the 80s, I was able to witness a lot of the speeches he gave regarding the Berlin Wall. But one of the speeches that really affected me was the Space Shuttle Challenger speech. And as a child, at 7 years old, even hearing that speech, the way that he presented it to the nation was an inspiration and a motivation to a lot of people. I also noticed as a child that when he would speak, other adults around me, my aunts, uncles, parents, would always be listening and pay attention to what he was saying. And I wouldn't say it was mainly the topics he was talking about, but the way that he would talk to people as he was talking to them and not at them. And it would captivate a lot of people, and he was a great public speaker in that regard.
So who was Ronald Reagan before becoming president of the United States? What did he do? Yeah. Wow. He was an actor. Can you guess how many movies he was in? How many movies he made?
Maybe 5.
5?
Not
Okay,
even-
anybody over here want to take a guess?
8.
You guys are 8? 8's a lot closer than 5. 53 movies.
53. So he was a big time actor. He was out there. That was for B, right?
Yeah, they got 1 point.
Okay.
Were any teammates?
He did do 53 movies. So today, we are going to talk about Ronald Reagan as our speaker. We're going to talk to him not as an actor, not as a president, but as our public speaker. First off, we're going to start off by discussing why we chose him as our public speaker. Second, we're going to talk about one of his speeches, which Robert just mentioned, the Space Shuttle Challenger, and the importance of that speech. And thirdly, we're going to look at some of the concepts that apply to him as a public speaker and why he inspired us. Now let's take a look why we chose him as a speaker and talk a little bit about how he was. Ronald Reagan was a very influential person of his time. Like I mentioned, he was an actor before becoming the 40th president of the United States. This was an advantage that he had as a public speaker. Of course, always being in front of the camera, acting out scenes, and being in front of the public obviously gave him a big advantage as a public speaker. He learned great communication skills, great delivery skills, and most importantly, he learned how to relate to his public. Doing some research, I saw on Askman.com that he earned the epithet the Great Communicator because of his disarming efficacy of his tone. He knew how to keep his audience engaged. In other words, he wasn't a boring speaker. He wasn't reading off paper when he was speaking. He did it in a conversational style, just kind of like I'm doing now, I hope. He made his audience feel comfortable listening to him. He did have an informal personality, but it says here that he had an authoritative personality as well and was always vigilant in his aims. Now that I've told you a little bit about him, you might know why we chose him as your speaker. So I'm going to leave Robert to talk to you about the importance of his speech, the Space Shuttle Challenger.
As she informed me, the speech I'm going to talk about is the Space Shuttle Challenger. Can anybody tell me when did this happen? What year? Take a guess.
1985.
Close but wrong. Anybody on Team A? Got 3 seconds. 3.
1979.
Wrong. 1986 is actually when the Space Shuttle Challenger sent it into space and blew up on its way, killing 7 people. Those people, their names were Michael Smith, Dick Scobie, Judith Resnick, Ronald McNair, Allison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and Kristen McCullough. Though it was a very tragic and sad event that occurred that day, Ronald Reagan still managed to address the nation that same evening and was able to be composed in his delivery of his speech. The way that he did the speech was very persuasive in a way that it still encouraged people, other astronauts, even children, to continue forward with space technology and exploration. He didn't let the fact that a tragic event killing 7 people
Ladies and gentlemen, I plan to speak to
stop exploration. I'm going to show you a simple little clip showing that he was able to convey to people an understanding that the death of these astronauts was not in vain.
this program has been doing just that. We've grown used to the idea of space, and perhaps we forget that we've only just begun. We're still pioneers. They, the members of the Challenger crew, were pioneers. And I want to say something to the school children of America who are watching the live coverage of the shuttle's takeoff. I know it's hard to understand, but sometimes painful things like this happen. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. It's all part of taking a chance at expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. The Challenger crew is pulling us into the future, and we'll continue to follow.
So as you see there, the way that he addressed everybody, he addressed adults, he addressed other astronauts, people working in NASA, as well as even children, that things like this happen. He was able to take this tragic event and use it to encourage and let people, give people an understanding that these kind of things happen. It was also very consoling in his speech, as you can see there. But in another part of his speech, he directly addresses the families of these astronauts, reminding them and us that that they were serving humankind in their exploration, and through their death, it was not in vain. So we see how he was able to address the nation by first talking about the tragic event. Next, this was about the middle of the speech, showing how these kind of things happen. And toward the end of the speech, he inspires by relating it and using an example from explorers in the past and the sacrifices and the risks they've made. And I'd like to just show you a quick clip of that.
There's a coincidence today. On this day, 390 years ago, the great explorer Sir Francis Drake died aboard ship off the coast of Panama. In his lifetime, the great frontiers were the oceans, and the historian later said he lived by the sea, died on it, and was buried in it. Well, today, we can say of the Challenger crew, their dedication was, like Drake's, complete.
So by reminding us that every brave explorer takes a chance by risking his or her life in advancing and further advancing humankind, and the steps that we take to explore space. As you see, we've conquered the seas already, as he brought Sir Francis Drake as an example of that. We see the significance of this speech, where a tragic event did occur and sadly 7 people were lost. He was able to take that, move it into motivation, and finally at the end, inspiration for people to continue. Therefore, I brought